Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Old Games. Today we are making another short guide, this time from Germania campaign in Rome Total War. And as you can see, the faction starts with 5 provinces. It's quite spread out, so moving troops from Vicus Marcomanni, for example, to Trier will take quite some time. And one initial challenge is that the settlements are really small, so the maximum population is 3,000, and your units do take quite a bit of population when you begin to recruit them, so you will be struggling with that, those small provinces. And of course the easiest to capture settlements, the rebel settlements, are rather small as well over here. So in some instances, at the very least, you should perhaps occupy or perhaps enslave the population instead of exterminating them. Of course, the good side of things is that your closest neighbors, the Gauls, Britons, and to some degree Dacians, also have relatively small settlements, so they cannot field too strong armies against you too early. So basically, the most important factor, in my opinion, as playing Germania is to be aggressive. Because you have Spear Warband as tier 1 unit, actually one of the most powerful or best units of tier 1 in the entire game, and I think also one of the best units in the entire game overall. So if Gaul fields warbands or swordsmen against them, you will just smash them. The Britons, the same, even if they bring some chariots, your spear warbands will just smash them. If the Dacians bring warbands or folksmen, you will just smash them. So you can be aggressive, and you should be aggressive, because if the kind of civilized factions get into the later stages of the game, you will be in somewhat trouble, because their units begin to counter your units quite a bit better. So my suggestion is to grab the closest settlements you can easily here, but at the same time make preparations for war against Gaul and Britons. And of course, you need to keep in mind that in order to invade the British Isles, you will need to have one settlement with enough population so that you can build a port and you can build a ship. And that might be a bit tricky, because all of these coastal settlements here are relatively small. So you may need to move population, for example, to Patavodurum, so that you can get it to tier 2 settlement and build a port and get the boats required to get into the British Isles. Because leaving the Britons behind your back will tie forces and might cause quite a bit of problems in the later stages of the game. So, while you are at wiping, or rather cleaning, the western part of Europe, you can rather easily continue all the way to Spain, because Spain really doesn't have that much that can put up a decent fight against your spear warbands. So the tier 1 unit will carry you all the way to the ends of Iberian Peninsula. And after you have taken care of the Western Europe, you can perhaps focus on the Eastern Europe. Most likely Dacia will attack you at some point, especially if you are playing on very hard difficulty. So even if you are focusing on the western part of Europe, you should have some defensive forces in this area, so you can take on the Dacian attack and perhaps make a retributive campaign in their area, and perhaps even wipe them out. But at some point, and hopefully closer to the mid-game rather than late game, you need to deal with Romans. Because if they get past Marian reforms, your task becomes quite a bit more difficult. And furthermore, capturing these cities in Italy will provide a nice boost to your economy. So, in my experience, after you have captured the Gaulish areas, you should begin to push directly against the Julii. And the battles you are going to fight in here will be quite difficult because there are these 4 Roman factions and they may field rather large armies, so you really need to utilize those spear warbands to the maximum efficiency and be ready to retrain and replenish those armies. So you need to have Mediolanum and Patavium as kind of strong bases before you begin to push here. At least you need to be able to replenish spear warbands and whatever other units you are mainly using in your armies. But if you manage to push through here, then taking Sicily, Caralis, which is most likely at that stage under Julii or Scipii control, should be relatively easy, and then you can move to Greece. And in Greece, against the Macedon, Greek cities and Thrace, you will be facing phalanxes and most likely higher tier phalanxes, for instance armored hoplites, phalanx pikemen, etc, etc. And in 1 versus 1, if you don't have highly experienced spear warbands, you are just going to start losing. So here you will need to bring some more, or rather diverse armies than in the other phases of the game. For instance, chosen archer warbands work really well, Gothic cavalry, chosen axemen or something, so that you can kind of pry those tin cans of armored hoplites open. That's the key. And of course, as with any faction, you should try to utilize some backstab in naval invasions. For instance, if your main army is near Apollonia, then perhaps strong enough fleet landing troops in Sparta could allow you to take these 3 settlements, which in turn will make things quite a bit easier. And of course, especially in Greece when you are facing those phalanx units, utilizing terrain might be really, really essential. So basically, militia hoplites in proper high ground can beat Spartan hoplites or armored hoplites that are coming uphill. So the terrain is really essential, and there are quite a few mountains over here, or hills, I don't know about in real geography. But in any case, just utilize the terrain to your advantage and you should be able to beat those phalanx units. And at that point, you are rather close to finishing the campaign. Perhaps some opportunistic attacks to Campus Kitai, Campus Skythi might earn the last remaining provinces you need. And of course, here Tingi might not be that well defended. So I think in the later game, if you just want to win the campaign, just be opportunistic and look for weakly defended settlements in Africa and in the area of modern Turkey. For instance, Pergamum might be easily defended, or some of these islands. One additional reason for being aggressive in the game is that Germania's building roster is at its peak in tier 3. And that will mean problems for you in the late game if you are playing it slow. Some of the bigger settlements here, for instance Alesia, Londinium, if they are growing fast, especially Patavium over here, you will have public order issues. Also other settlements here in Italy, in Greece, for instance Carthage. So, and the reason is that you don't have those highest tier temples that the so-called civilized factions have, so that will bring some public order bonuses that you cannot achieve or get. Furthermore, if the settlements develop past the tier 3, you cannot switch the culture of the government building to your culture, which will cause culture penalties, which will in turn cause public order problems. And the same goes with, for instance, if the Romans have tier 4 barracks in Rome, you cannot demolish them, they will cause culture penalty, and it's rather sad if you need to demolish them for the sake of public order, because then you will need to wait some, say, 9 turns to get your own tier 3 barracks up and running here. So, and of course it will cost quite a bit as well. So that's one additional reason to being fast in the campaign. And of course, with larger armies, especially if you are pushing through multiple fronts or waging war in multiple fronts, for instance in Spain, Italy and Dacia, you may be stretched thin resource-wise. So basically the essential buildings in addition to military buildings are, in my opinion, roads, ports, and especially here in the Northern Europe, farms. Because here you will need the population growth and the extra income the farms will provide. At the same time, I would be really cautious of building any kind of farms as Germania here in the more fertile lands, because here you will be struggling with maintaining the public order. But yeah, that's how I would say you should play Germania. So to summarize it in 3 things: be aggressive, and be even more aggressive here in the campaign. Because especially if you are utilizing spear warbands, you can quite often retrain them right in the settlement you capture and keep the offensive going further on. So yeah, that's my short guide about playing Germania in Rome Total War. What do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree? Did I miss some essential points in this guide? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked the content, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Old Games out.